Seems like most of you don't have microphones, so the first thing I was going to say is please pipe up throughout this whole session. It's probably going to take about a half an hour. Ask whatever questions you want. If you don't have a microphone, there's a little chat window. If you can see a little GoToMeeting panel, there's a little thought bubble there, and you can type questions in there. Cal will be monitoring them, answering them, or he'll interrupt for me and ask the questions on your behalf. Today we're going to be going through Sage Intelligence, otherwise known as Alchemex. It's a very flexible report writer, does lots of things, but its main strength is it gets your data out of your database into Excel. Any database. Today I'm going to focus on Sage CRE that you're all comfortable with, you all have and you all know. So I think these examples will be appropriate to you, but bear in mind those two very important keys is the data goes straight into Excel. It's not intermediary, it's just straight out of your database into Excel, which is nice and slick, and then you get all the tools of Excel. And the second part is it can be connected to any database. So you might have other databases in your company and you want to combine the data from you might use Sage CRE payroll, for example. You want to pull some payroll data out with some Sage CRE data, combine them into one Excel spreadsheet. You can do that stuff with Sage Intelligence. And there its two main strengths. There's lots of report writers in the world, and we've got others as well that, if this doesn't suit your needs, but they're the two main reasons you would want it. I'm going to work through some examples. Some of you already have Sage Intelligence, and I hope to teach you some things. Some of you are pretty proficient in Sage Intelligence already, so I hope you do learn something and I'm not just droning on for half an hour. Okay, there are three main bits, these three icons on the screen. Three main bits to Sage Intelligence: the report viewer, the report manager, and the connector. And I'm going to work through those 1, 2, 3, from simplest to most complex. And it's intentionally designed this way. So starting with report viewer example, we just double click on it. This will pop straight into a report list. So these are all my Sage Intelligence reports, and it's literally that simple. The report viewer is meant for the end users that just want to run the report. They just click on it, they say that's the report I want, and I'll show you a number of examples in a second. Click on the report, click run, and they get their Excel report. That simple. Security can be added to this, so I'm seeing all the reports, and you noticed it didn't ask me for a username or password, but we could easily add a username or password to that, and then they plug in the username and password, and it only presents the reports they're able to see. So, for example, project managers might want to see all these job reports, but they're not allowed to see financial statements. So I'm just going to start at the top. I'm not going to run all of these, but I'll run a good selection. So I'm going to start with AP aging by accounting date. I think most of you are familiar with Sage CRE accounts payable aging reports. These three reports are all identical, just running. One's got a cutoff date by accounting date, one's due date, one's invoice date. So I'll run accounting date for all the accountants in the room. Click on it, click run. Most reports have a parameter. Again, you're all familiar with AP aging reports, so all it's doing is asking me to pick a cutoff date. I am going to roll all the way back to May 2015 because that's where my old sample data is. I could have just typed that in. I didn't have to use the picker. Click OK. And then it tells us what it's doing. Pretty meaningless stuff, but probably better than a little spinning hourglass. So you can see it takes a little while to get the data, but still only a matter of seconds as opposed to trying to get the data out of Sage and into an Excel other ways. I imagine most of you have tried to get a Sage CRE report out to Excel, and if you were, say, using a Crystal report, it comes out pretty nicely, but you've still got to run it, export it to Excel, maybe play around with it a little bit in Excel. For those of you who have tried to run the standard Sage CRE reports or financial statements to Excel, they they're just horrid. You spend a good half an hour making them look pretty and getting the data right. So down the bottom is my Excel. It's already done. There's my report. So in a nutshell, that is the beauty of Sage Intelligence. I can get something like a pretty AP aging report directly into Excel in a matter of seconds. My sample data is pretty small, so your data would take longer to run that, but even if it takes a couple of minutes, it's still hugely quicker than any other way of getting data to Excel. So this looks pretty. This is using just stock standard Excel tools. That's one of the beauties of it. Excel's just an amazing tool. I think you're all accountants to some extent, and I think we all agree that Excel is just the best tool since sliced bread. And there's just so much stuff to it. A lot of people say they're Excel experts, and they know half of what's in Excel. It can do pretty graphs, pretty reports, pivot tables, all sorts of things. So one of the nice things about Excel, and this didn't take a lot of work, this is just Excel skills, is things like these little expansion things. So you can see A1 Electric Company, we owe them $17,000 broken out, a bit of retention. But if I want to see the details that make up that 17 grand, that's the 17 grand. And something as simple as that, it's in Excel and I want to see, what are those 3 invoices add up to? It's just basic Excel tools, such a brilliant tool. So very nice little Excel report there of my AP aging. Another little nice thing about it is up the top of my my companies and my trade creditors accounts. So in this particular case, company 10 and company 21 are my 2 companies. And then 2001 and 2003, 2001 is my trade creditors, 2003 I think is my retention payable. So if I wanted to see what my trade creditors were for company 10, I can just click on that and there they all are. If I want to see my trade creditors for those 2, I can click on 2 and there they all are. So really nice, easy stuff. I'd ask if there's any questions at this point. So you feel free to pipe up. And if not, we'll move on to the next example. So the next thing I want to cover is GL financial statements. So I've only got one GL report here. I'm going to run it. Simple and easy again. Pop this up, scroll back to 2015. Click OK. Again, takes a little while to go and get the data. Shortly I will have an Excel spreadsheet, which is almost a little reporting package. You'll see it in a second, but there's a tab, the Excel tab. So I've got a tab for a trial balance, a tab for profit and loss, a tab for a balance sheet, and a tab for a cash flow, and even 2 different versions of a profit and loss, just all in one Excel spreadsheet, 5 separate tabs. And there it is, my first tab, TB, my second tab, P&L. This particular one has my companies across the top. There's my 3 companies. There's my consolidated figure across them all. Revenue, cost of sales, subcontract. This is all completely customizable. It's just Excel and Excel functionality. I've got a detail and a summary. You'll see here that labor's broken out, whereas if I go to the summary, labor's just a single line. A balance sheet and a cash flow. Some of you may not know that Sage CRE does both cash and accrual accounting. So getting a statement of cash flows out of CRE, like a perfectly accurate statement of cash flows, is actually pretty easy. Now I'll show you a little trick here. I didn't show you on the first one, but these are the tabs. These are my end result. But if I unhide, I've got this first tab called TL data. And this is all the raw data. This is what actually gets pulled out. So I'll show you how to create this a little later on, but this is what it's pulling out when I hit that run button. It's saying, go and grab the company, go and grab the account, go and grab all this information. And this is all the raw data, you know, hundreds of lines. In this case, it's sample data, so it's not very many hundreds of lines, but that's all the raw data, GL accounts, balances, and so forth. But that's not what we normally want to look at. That's why it's hidden. You know, we then, these tabs all just refer back to that hidden tab to put it in a nice presentable form. Okay, if there's no questions on that, I'll move on to another example. Okay, now a job report. So I've got a number of job reports here. I'm going to start with just the job cost code summary. So this is something that, say, a project manager might run. So they can plug in the job number if they know it. I think one of my job numbers is 03001, but if you don't know your job number, you can pop up the list. And this stuff's all customizable as well, so that had a bit of a think about it because it was going to look at the list directly back in Sage CRA, and so I can pick my job numbers. In my case, I haven't got a job description there, but we could do that. It's not difficult to, you know, 03001, I think it's Office Park or something. I can have the descriptions are on the list. In my case, I'm just going to go select all, click OK, and click OK again. There's a job status here, and so I can pick, you know, do I want in progress jobs, unstarted jobs, and those of you who know CRA job costs could pick a closed option, for example. These filters and how they work are all completely customizable. So a really common example here with job reports is I might want to, if I'm the project manager, I only want to see my reports. So when I run the report, I say, yeah, this is my name, and therefore it filters the list to only show my job reports. All completely customizable. So here's my nice pretty job report. You know, again, to show you, if I go on unhide sheet 1, there's all my raw data. So if I scroll down, every job, job description, all the cost codes, all the dollars on those, actuals, commitments, all that sort of stuff. There's all the raw data. But again, I don't normally want to see that. I want to see it in a nice pretty format using a pivot table or whatnot. So there's my food warehouse. There's my, it's a bit American, but that's prelims, let's call it, site work, concrete work. If I scroll down some more, there's my next job. But even better, up the top, I've got some filters. So I might say, I just want to see my food warehouse. I might want to see Fort Wayne's Officers Club. I might want to see all of those, but I just want to see all of the electrical across all of those. So you can see food warehouse electrical, Office Park electrical, Fort Wayne Officers Club electrical, totals for that. I can multi-select. I might want to see mechanical and electrical. So like none of this stuff is really Sage Intelligence. This is all just Excel, the beauty of Excel and the tools of Excel. So Sage Intelligence is really just letting us get it to that first tab quickly and easily, and then I can make the prettiest reports in history. Some of you might not know that you can actually use another Microsoft product called Power BI on top of your Excel. And what Power BI gives you even more prettiness. You know, you can create visually nice dashboards and things like that. And John's just asked me a question that I do not know. Are they pivot slices? We'll ask Pam that question, John? I think so. I think you're right. You know, this is what I mean about the beauty of Excel. I like to call myself a pretty confident in Excel, but there is a lot I don't know. There's a lot that's there.
Sorry to interrupt, Judd.
Yeah.
John has a question for you. He says, are those boxes on the top right pivot slices?
Yeah. No, I don't know. So Pam created most of these, so I can certainly get the answers to that, answer that question, John. She is our Excel guru. So that one's a job cost summary. You know, project managers quite regularly look at that sort of one. And last one I'm going to run is a profit summary. Yes, John, good old Pam to the rescue. Pretty sure everybody on this call knows Pam, and she does have the answers to everything. So this one's just another variety of the same thing. This one's one line per job, so you can see how your jobs are looking at as a whole. In my sample data, I've only got like 5 jobs, I think, so it's not particularly meaningful, but if you've got 50 jobs on the go, this is super helpful. So list of jobs, contracts, variations, you know, you can do whatever columns you want, subtract, add, calculate margins, all that sort of stuff. And this is what I was talking about before about project managers. So I've got 2 project managers, Doug Moffat, they're his jobs, Michael Perkins' jobs, and I've got some that aren't assigned. I've got one that's not assigned to anybody. And you might also have different types of jobs, you know, so you might say, show me my government jobs, for example. And whether they're called pivot slices or whatever they are, John, you know, this is super helpful stuff. Okay, enough examples. I think that's given you a good feel for what's possible, but this is just GLA, PAR, financials and jobs. You can do it with anything. You can do it with payroll, you can do it with purchasing, and like I said, the real key with Sage Intelligence is it doesn't even need to be Sage CRE. It can be something completely different. Again, you know, this is the viewer that really just end users do. You know, all of us on this call might create the reports and then we publish them, and then somebody else can, in the business, you know, 50 other people in the business might have viewer licenses. They go run reports when they want, but that's all they can do. Super quick and easy to run a report. The next bit I want to show is the report manager, and this is where we create those reports. So I'm going to open that up, and you'll see it's a lot more on the screen, a lot more complex. So not many people will use this in your company. It'll probably be one of you, and it might even be 0 of you. You know, we've got customers with Sage Intelligence that we create the reports, we put them on the menus, and then people just run them, and you don't have a need to create new ones or modify them very often, and if you do, you get us to do them. But commonly there's probably one person in the company that understands this stuff and can create their own reports. And occasionally a couple, but it's not many. Creating a report, I'll show you shortly how easy they are, but they only start easy. You know, things like that, those pretty reports we did then, you've got to have some good knowledge of the CRE database and some good Excel knowledge, and not many people have both of those things in a company. So what I'm going to show you now is how to create a report. So this is exactly the same things we were just looking at. You can see it looks a little different because it's a tree on the left, but it's exactly the same reports. I am going to create a new GL transaction report. Oops, my previous example is there, so I'm going to delete it. So when we ran it before, you saw there was only GL financial statements. I'm going to add a new report. So first thing I do is select the folder I want it to be in. I click this add report button. I've got a choice of standard reports and union reports, and there's a lot of buttons in this screen that I'm just going to gloss over because this is really an introductory session. But just to give you an example, most reports we create are standard, but this is union report allows me to grab data from 2 different places. So for example, you might have 2 different Sage CRE databases or multiple Sage CRE databases that it's really hard to get the data into one Excel spreadsheet. With a union report, I can say, go grab the GL out of that database, go grab the GL out of that database and 10 others, pull all that data into one Excel spreadsheet, and then do exactly the same financial statements we were doing before. And I think a couple of you on this call have that example, you know, multiple separate databases that you might want to consolidate. but that's just an example. Like I say, this is a very powerful tool. I'm going to start simple today though. So I'm going to pick a standard report. I'm going to call it a GL transaction report. I might just call it GL transaction details. So these are all my databases in the system, and some of these, most of these are pretty obvious to you. You know, this is Sage CRE, accounts payable, basically those reports we're doing that. You're all probably familiar with GLT current, the terminology, GL transaction file, current. I can run it off the current, I can run it off the history, I can run them off both combined. So I'm just going to pick GLT current, click OK. Then it says, okay, which fields do you want? You know, the account number, the accounting date, the amount. I'm just going to select all, click OK. And then I go down to here to GL transaction details. This is my new report. I can go to columns. You can see there's all the columns I created. I can rearrange those a little bit if I wanted to. For example, month and year should probably be closer together. So I'll just move year up there, but that's just cosmetic. I can put some filters on it. I can put parameters. Filters and parameters are almost the same thing as, like, I don't want to see all the data. I want to be selective. And the only difference is a filter is a fixed thing, whereas a parameter is, remember we had some boxes pop up to say which job do you want. That's a parameter that pops up and asks you, hey, what info do you want to see? A dynamic selection as you're running it. I can sort and aggregate, but I just want to show you how simple it is to run a report, to create a report. I'm just going to do that, and I'm just going to run. So now it's doing exactly the same thing that the viewer did. It's just going and getting the data. It's going to drop it out to Excel. And in this case, we're not going to get a polished report because we're creating one from scratch. So what we're going to get is an Excel spreadsheet with just the raw data on it. So there it is. So see sheet 1, raw data. And if I'm doing a GL transaction report, this might be all I want. You know, I can now use Excel to go and say, okay, well, let's add a filter to this. And I only want to, I'm looking for a particular GL account or something. You know, I might want to see all the transactions for that account, for example, or I might want to, you know, I want to see all the transactions for this month. So, you know, just this is beautiful that Excel can automatically sorts my dates. So I can just go, yeah, show me everything in May 2015, click OK. So that alone is really nice and handy. But like I said before, I can now start doing some fancy Excel stuff. So I might highlight that whole spreadsheet of data, and then I might go to Insert and say, show me a recommended chart for that. Pops up and says, oh, maybe a column graph will do. So I click OK, and suddenly I've got a little pivot table and a graph. Now it's sort of misinterpreted my data a little bit. It said, oh, what do you want to see? The sum by company? Well, that's not particularly useful. So what I might do is I really want to have my amount down in my values. I don't want the month. And there's my company and my dollars. But then I might want to, this is all my GL accounts. I might just want to see my income. So I'm going to grab my account number and put it in the filters. And in my case, I know my, sorry, wrong one. I don't want my full account. I want my base account. And in my case, I know my income accounts are all the 1000s. So I'm just going to go and tick all the 1000 GL accounts. That's my income. Click OK. So now I've got this little simple graph of income by company. You know, so that's $680,000 income for company 10 and 20. And then I might want to do a bit more slicing and dicing. I actually want to see that by year, for example. So company 10 had no income in 2014, some in 2015, Okay, year is a bad example. I'm going to put month in there instead. So there's my income. You can see we had a loss in month 1 for company 10, then we did well. So that's just starting to get into Excel tools. Certainly not the point of the exercise today. I just wanted to show you how easy it is to get data out to an Excel spreadsheet, and then we can start using the power of Excel to create pretty reports and graphs and pivot tables. Now, the last thing I want to show you is connector. So you might have noticed when we were doing this, I started to do filters on this data. Oops, already got filters on it. And I said, I can filter on date and amount and those sorts of things. But when I'm looking at, say, looking through my GL transactions, I'm usually looking for something specific. It might be a date, or it might be a description or something, and the description's not there. Description is just not one of those columns. So this is a good introduction of how you create reports. How you modify the database. So let me just quickly delete that report, and I'll quickly do it again just to show you. GL transaction details. And sorry, we're up to the half-hour mark. We're getting close to the end. So I did this. I went and picked GL current, and I clicked OK. And these are all the fields that were available for me to select, and I just went select all. But you can see one of them is not GL description. So when somebody created this, what we call a data container, they looked at the GL, the Sage CRE general ledger transaction file, and they said, oh, I want the account, I want the accounting date, I want the amount. And they didn't make a decision to include the GL description or a lot of other bits of info. So what I'm going to do is show you how to do that. So this moves on to the third bit. So report manager was really just how to create a new report or modify them. Connector is how to create the connections in the first place. And this is something most of you won't do. It's connecting to the CRE database and deciding which data you're going to use on reports. And once that's done once, you don't really need to do it again. So we usually do this stuff. You're certainly welcome to do it. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is viewer is intentionally built in, Sage Intelligence is intentionally built into 3 bits from easiest to hardest. You saw how easy it was for an end user to create a report. You saw it's actually pretty easy to create a report from scratch, but you need to know the database and you need to know Excel. And then connectors, even a little bit more complicated again, but it's intentionally built into 3 bits that if this is too hard for you, honestly, no problem at all. It's too hard for most of our customers. Report manager might be something you're good at, might not be, and sometimes we do that for customers too. But anybody can run a report. So I'm going to open Connector for the first time. So this is the bit where you establish the connections to your databases. In our case, CRE, but again, any database. So here's a whole pile of examples. Say Sage Intelligence can be connected to any of these, to a Firebird database, to a Microsoft Jet database, MyOb account write, different versions of MyOb and different OWC drivers. It can be connected to other Excel spreadsheets. So you might have big Excel spreadsheets that contain a lot of data that you want to create a second Excel spreadsheet off that to summarize the reports, or you're only pulling out some of the data. Microsoft SQL servers, all sorts of different things. This list, you can almost connect to any database. So I'm going to go down here to my construction sample data. And if I open that up, there's my databases we were looking at before. And if I open up GLT current, you can see they're the same fields we were just looking at, and description is not on that list. So to add, this is like a data container, and this is the fields that I've selected for CRE, and now I want to add the GL description. So what I'm going to do is just add expression. I'm picking a data field. Again, it can be a lot more complicated than that, but I'm just going to start simple. And it is thinking about it. There you go, it's making connection to the database. So this is what's really in the Sage CRE current GLT. So this column here, current GLT transaction file. These are all the fields. So this is what somebody did originally. They went, oh, I want the account number, I want the accounting date, I want the amount. It looks like it's a calculated field, so they might have added those two together to get the amount, for example. But when they did all this, they didn't pick the transaction description, and I'm going to do that now. And so there's a whole pile of other stuff, you know, maybe the job, the AP invoice, all sorts of other things. If any of you have looked at the current GLT, you'll see these are exactly the fields that are available. For me, I just want to add the GL transaction description, click OK, and you can see it's over here on the list now. Another really nice thing about Sage Intelligence is you can change the name. So that's the name of the description according to Sage. If that's not super meaningful to you, you can just change it. You know, that's pretty self-explanatory, obviously, but I want to make it even a little bit clearer. And I just change the name to transaction description. So now it's super clear. So any questions on that? You know, this is starting to get quite complex, but you saw it's pretty easy. If I know where to go, it's only a few clicks to there, and then I add the GL transaction description. But again, if that's starting to get a bit daunting, that's not surprising. The connector stuff can be pretty, it's pretty technical. I'm going to go back to Report Manager, which is where I created my GL transaction report. I'm going to create it again. I'm going to go add report. GL transaction details. Scroll down to current GLT. And you can see that's my same list I did before, but now it has transaction description on it. So I'm going to do exactly the same thing. So that bit where I went off and added the transaction description, like I said, you don't need to do it. If we go and add that bit, then it's available for all future reports and easy. So now I just run it again, goes off and gets my GL transaction data. And it will be exactly the same, except I now have my description. There it is with the description. And again, you know, just some simple stuff like find. You know, I might be looking for something with a particular description in it. I don't know. University. There we go. Find. It's one of the beauties of Excel. Lots of tools. Filter on that, whatever I want to do. And that is pretty much all I wanted to show you. So does anybody have any questions? Anything else they'd like to see? Like I say, some of you are already pretty advanced with this, so I hope I taught you something at least. Not seeing any questions in the chat. I'll give you another few seconds to type something in if you have one. If not, that's what I wanted to show you. If I can be helpful in any other way, you know, if you've got questions about it.
I had a quick question, Judd. Might be a bit of a dummy question, but early on you did there was a parameter you entered for dates, and I was just wondering how intelligent that is? Like, does it have to be in the same format, or does it accept multiple formats and it just looks it up?
Yeah, good question. I'll do that. If anybody needs to go, you're welcome. You're welcome to, and thank you very much for attending. Please let us know if you have any questions. As Cal said, he'll send the video, the recording out afterwards, so you can watch it again. But everybody's welcome to hang around and listen to the answer to the question, Ben's question, or ask your own. So there's probably a couple of parts to that question, Ben. So when I created this GL transaction report, I just picked some columns, and accounting date's one of them. Now, without putting any filters or parameters on it, I just ran the whole lot out to Excel. So I can hit run, and that takes all the data, every bit of my current GL transactions out to Excel. Now, if you're keeping your CRE GL fairly tidy, for example, you're moving stuff off to the history file, every year, every couple of years, then the current GLT is probably what you're after. These are all this year's transactions, maybe this year's and last year's transactions. That's normally what I want to see. So without putting any filters or parameters on it, I'm going to get all of that data pop out to my Excel spreadsheet. And then within Excel, I can use the Excel tools, and the Excel filtering is really nice. I can go to this accounting date, it automatically sorts it by year. And like I did before, I can do this. I can say I want, just that. Click OK, and I'm only seeing the stuff I've selected. But that's purely an Excel function. I'm using Excel's filtering capabilities, which are really, really nice, obviously. If the only reason you would really probably put a filter or a parameter on the data before I push it out to Excel is if I'm trying to push too much data out to Excel. So I might, I click the button to run, get all my data out of CRM, put it in an Excel spreadsheet, and that's not a big deal because my sample data is pretty small. If your data is huge, or for example, if I grabbed all the stuff that's in the current GLT and you've got big data and it takes 5 minutes, if I put a parameter here to say, to allow you to select the month now before I run it, it's only going to grab probably 1/12 of the data. So therefore, instead of taking 5 minutes, it might take 30 seconds. So here's where we put filters or parameters. So something like a month, you wouldn't put in as a filter, because a filter is saying, I might say accounting date, or I might say, actually I'll go month here. Actually I won't, I'll go accounting date. A filter is saying accounting date greater than or equal to, 1st of May 2015. So I think this is where your question was, when I pipe these in, how can I type that in? And I'll hold that question for a second. So I've put in a filter there that says only show me transactions greater than that date. But a filter is hard-coded. It's always only going to include transactions after that date. And when I'm running, say, GL transaction reports, that's not what I want. Today I might want to run it for this date range, and 5 minutes later I might want to run it for a different date range. And that's the difference between a filter and a parameter. A parameter asks me at the time I run it. So I'm going to do the same thing with a parameter. I'm going to say accounting date greater than or equal to, and I'm going to click OK. I'm just going to leave it as a blank parameter. And then I'm going to add another one, which says accounting date less than or equal to, and again, I'm going to leave it blank. I can have those pre-filled, but I'm just going to leave them blank for simplicity. So now when I run the report, it pops up and it asks me for my parameters. I see accounting date greater than or equal to, I want to roll that back to 2015, May 1st of May 2015 to 31st of May 2015. Really simple. So to answer your question, Ben, about these dates, this is actually pretty flexible. You can type in 31 May 2015. You can type in 31 May 15. You can type 31 May 15. You can type in 31 May 2015. It's pretty pretty user friendly there. And as you saw, I've got a little picker there if I prefer.
Yeah.
Click OK. And now when this is doing exactly the same thing, getting data out of my GL, but this time it's basically filtering it as it's running it. So what I'll get in my Excel spreadsheet is only May 2015 because they were the dates I chose.
Awesome. That perfectly answers my question.
Yeah, lots of answers to a simple question. Let me just prove that. Yeah, there you go. So you can see I'm only seeing May 2015 in there.
Yep.
Any other questions before we wrap it up?
No, thank you, Judd. I think that's the end of our session.
Thank you very much.